right now. Hi.
Good morning. It's the Ides of March, and maybe Rudolph Nureyev's birthday. I don't know. He's dead now, though. Not in my heart.
He took a big leap. Yeah.
I'm going now to buy some vegetables and sesame tahini and things like that. So.
And celebrate the sighting of a.
I saw a Muscovy duck at the park out of the corner of my eye, with a bunch of other ducks. Doesn't mean anything to you, but I haven't heard that word or thought of it in 60 years. So I think I frightened myself.
We're taking lion's mane mushrooms, and we're thinking thoughts we haven't thought in 70 years. Bye. There she goes. Okay. Where am I? What am I doing? Oh, no, I think I can turn this around. I'm sorry we're a little late this morning. But it is one of those Tuesday things where it's a hit and miss affair. And with daylight savings time screwing us all up, I'm surprised we're not any earlier or later than we are. But anyway, can you wait long enough for me to get this cup of coffee into me? Well, happy Ides of March. And Ides of March is when we celebrate the assassination of Julius Caesar. I don't know if that is any kind of an omen or anything else, but it was on the eve of him actually getting the Roman Senate to give him dictatorial powers in Rome, and they didn't want, or at least a few of them didn't want a dictator. And so, of course, there's the famous Shakespearean play and many, many movies about it. But it took place on the Ides of March, or March 15th. The Ides of every month is the middle of every month. And there was a soothsayer. A soothsayer said to him, "Feather, forsooth, I soothed last night and saw bad luck for you today. Beware the Ides of March." And Caesar showed up at the Senate. He went to the Senate cafeteria and had the famous senatorial Capitol Hill bean soup. And after his bean soup, he walked up the steps to the Senate to get himself crowned. And he looked down at the soothsayer and said to the soothsayer, "The Ides of March have come, you dumb shit." And the soothsayer said, "Ides of March have come, but not gone." And of course, afterwards, the Brutus and the senators, the conspirators, stabbed him to death with the plastic forks that they had at the senatorial cafeteria. It was very painful. But I digress. We were talking about the curse of Belial, or never share a fiend with a friend. And it's a story from my life with the spirits about a joint Goetic evocation. As a matter of fact, a series of 2 or 3 of them that I performed very, very early in my most naive and amateurish and experimental phase of my magical career. For the purpose, the low magic purpose of getting a loan approved to fund a business venture for my boss, and then the follow up to it. And if you haven't seen the last 2 days, I really encourage you to scroll down on my page and see the first 2. Or if you don't have My Life with the Spirits, I'm disappointed in you, number 1. And number 2, it's best to read it in My Life with the Spirit, because it puts it in perspective. This isn't the experienced Lon Milo DuQuette telling this story. It's a very inexperienced Lon Milo DuQuette confessing the comedy of errors that was this, what I can loosely call a Goetic evocation. We'd gotten to the point of where we actually got the money, got the loan. And now we're shopping for a cartoonist to do the graphics. And we located a very talented cartoonist who submitted regularly to Playboy magazine, but he was a hopeless alcoholic. And in order for us to actually work with him and exploit his cycle of creativity, Matt and I had to also alter our. It was like he was dragging us to hell with him in order to get him to work with us. So I'm going to back up just 1 paragraph. Jack Barr was just one of the demon helpers who labored for us on this venture. Each one executed his or her assigned task to our satisfaction, but each also brought with him some vice or infernal flaw that managed to extract from Matt and me some painful measure of personal concession. I'm not exaggerating when I say it was truly like working with a pack of demons. Still, the results were impressive. Matt's career was off with a bang. The books were printed, the games were manufactured. Matt lectured at a local university and was discovered by a newspaper reporter who splashed his picture and story across the front page of the accent section of the Sunday Los Angeles Times. This publicity led to the direct mail sale of the entire first edition of the books and game, and spawned a dizzying schedule of college lectures. Our next request for Belial was to remove any obstacles that might prevent Matt from opening his own counseling center. We performed another joint evocation, which this time was not accompanied by strange wet phenomena. As far as we could tell, the operation was also successful, and Matt was soon the director of his psychological counseling center and the darling of the recovery industry. The center became quite popular. Matt took on 2 additional associates, and the 3 of them booked a full schedule of clients. Matt also facilitated groups in the evening and held weekend intensives. The money was good. My job was done. Matt got, seemingly anyway, everything he wanted and more from our little magic fiend. I got over a year of steady work and a segue to an even better position in commercial real estate. That's an accidental story in itself. I moved on to my new job and Matt settled into his blossoming career. We both more or less forgot about Belial. Neither one of us called him up to thank him or to give him another one of those offerings he liked so well. Matt just went on with his unambiguous magical will to succeed, and my unambiguous will went on to focus on other things. Belial's joint masters abandoned him, and Matt's fortunes were soon to change. It all started when Elizabeth, Matt's receptionist and secretary, got married to a client of Matt's, a wealthy entrepreneur named Charles, who came to the center to overcome a drug addiction. After they were married, Charles and Elizabeth moved to the Midwest, where, for one reason or another, Elizabeth became hopelessly addicted to cocaine. Charles was beside himself and called Matt and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Confident in Matt's discretion and ability to help clients overcome drug problems, Charles offered Matt an exorbitant figure to fly to their home and treat Elizabeth on a 24-hour basis until she was clean. He also paid for all lost client fees that Matt would incur while he was away. Matt accepted. The treatment took 5 weeks, during which time Charles confided in Matt the nature of his business. In keeping with the theme of this chapter, I need only say that Charles was a creature of the underworld, and Matt had unwittingly become one of his minions. Predictably, Charles paid Matt in cash. Cash that Matt put in his briefcase for a return flight home. A briefcase that was opened by airport officials in the Midwest. Airport officials that had questions. Questions Matt would not answer. In all likelihood, the authorities realized that Matt was more or less an innocent acquaintance of Charles, who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, carrying a large amount of questionable cash. Nevertheless, they mistakenly believed Matt could give them useful information concerning Charles's operation, and in order to pressure him to cooperate, they arrested him on a number of charges, none of which included the charges of stupidity and ill-placed loyalty. Bail and subsequent legal fees devastated Matt's finances. He lost his house to foreclosure. As the home loan was the original object of our magical operation, I called Matt and told him it was clear that Belial had turned against the game plan and urged we exorcise him from our lives. He agreed. I conjured Belial one last time and gave him license to depart, and dismissed him from my service. I then burned his paper sigil and sanded his sign from the copper medallion. I drove to Matt's new home on the beach, and together we performed a brief exorcism. Instead of sanding down his copper medallion, Matt wanted to destroy it by casting it into the sea where it would quickly corrupt in the salt water. We stepped to the water's edge. Matt hurled it with a mighty sweep, and it shot out to sea like a tiny flying saucer. The sea breeze caught it like a frisbee and lifted it a few feet higher than its original trajectory. Suddenly, a seagull intercepted the disc in midair and caught it firmly in its beak. Matt and I couldn't believe what we were seeing. We waved our arms and screamed at the bird, hoping it would fly farther out to sea and drop it. But it circled back and flew toward Matt's little bungalow. It made a few dips and circles, then dropped the disc in the sand about 50 yards down the beach. We ran to where it appeared to fall and carefully combed the sand, but we could not find it. For the next year, while he fought one expensive legal battle after another, Matt searched for Belial's sigil. He borrowed a metal detector. He built a screen box. He questioned sunbathers who spread their towels in the vicinity. He never found it. He did, however, eventually resolve his awful situation. It took 5 years and all of his resources. But in the end, he neither betrayed his clients nor did he go to jail for his silence. He pulled his life and career back together and ran the counseling center for as long as it was his unambiguous will to do so. But I have to add, the success of everything he did sort of deteriorated. Anyway, I digress. There's a magical legend that informs us that King Solomon built the great temple of God with the supernatural help of demons. Afterward, he bound the spirits and imprisoned them in a brass bottle and sealed it with a leaden seal and threw it into a river. One day a fisherman netted the bottle and innocently unleashed the spirits back into the world. Solomon eventually caught all but 72 of the little devils and sealed them back up. The remaining 72 are the spirits of the Goetia, including Belial. A couple years after Matt's unfortunate adventure, he and his new girlfriend were relaxing on the beach with friends who were visiting from Israel. Matt was playing frisbee with the 14-year-old son of their guests when the boy reached into the sand and recovered the lost medallion of Belial. Matt still keeps it in his office in a place of honor. The boy's name was Solomon. And that's the end of the curse of Belial. Never share a fiend with a friend. I hope you've enjoyed it. We're coming up. We're midway. We're at the Ides of March. We're coming up onto what is considered by many of us to be the high holy days of Thelema, because it was in March of 1904 that Crowley and his new wife, honeymooning in Cairo, set into motion the events that would lead to the equinox of the gods, or the changing, if you will, of the magical age, or aeon. And subsequently, after that, the reception of the Book of the Law, and a new magical formula was announced. So, in the same way that many religions have their calendar representing the major events of the life of their prophets, March and April are pretty big months in the Thelemic calendar, and we're going to talk more about that for the next few days or so, if that interests you. If not, I'll post more YouTubes of the Mighty Mouse theme song. If you prefer. Okay. Until tomorrow, from the parking lot of Sprouts Farmers Market in Sacramento, California, I bid you a happy Ides of March. And may the blessing of the Ides of March befall your favorite dictator. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.